It's been just over 2 months since the last video, and in that time I've been working hard on developing a new character in a non-photorealistic style. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, here's a quick rundown. Earlier this year I started a new project to improve my skills in Unreal Engine. It's a third-person shooter inspired by games like Splatoon and Super Mario Sunshine, where you can paint the walls and slide. I've planned this with the intention of eventually turning it into a full game, though I'll hold off on discussing the broader concept for now. For the time being, I focus my design efforts on specific elements that matter the most, one of which is creating a high quality main character in a 3D anime style. Creating something like this takes a significant amount of time, and its purpose is to serve as a benchmark for the final level of quality. Once the character is fully integrated with animation, my next focus will be turning the project into more of a game, starting with rough placeholder environments until a solid gameplay loop is established. Now, let's take a look at what I've been working on over the past 2 months. The game is set in a holiday resort, so the core themes are centered around the sun, beach and sea. This crude drawing was my initial idea. As you could probably tell, 2D isn't my strong suit, despite recent efforts to improve. Instead, I tend to rely heavily on reference material and develop through the modeling and texturing process. I would have spent more time exploring and iterating on alternative concepts, but drawing for me can be frustrating and at times time-consuming. As a result, this is the design I went with, and this is how it turned out. I studied the art styles I wanted to emulate and tried to reverse engineer their look by following tutorials or experimenting on my own, which meant each step took some time. The mesh and texturing are complete, but the lighting isn't behaving properly yet, since the normals haven't been set up. Doing so is low on the priority list, but here is an example I've posted on my channel in the past, demonstrating the effect I intend to achieve on the face. There are outline artifacts visible in various areas, mostly noticeable around the nose and within the hair. This is due to the outline technique I am using, known as inverse hull, needing some extra configuration. Transparency is commonly used on the hair's fringe to allow the eyes and eyebrows to show through. I've not set this up due to the grainy effect that happens with the Eevee renderer. You can see this on the lenses of the sunglasses. The common solutions like increasing sample count and enabling denoising haven't worked, so if anybody has any insight, please drop a comment down below. I've not addressed these issues within Blender because they are dealt with differently within Unreal, and it wouldn't be a worthy investment of my time. So let's break down the elements and summarise the process. The top took a few tries to get the creasing just right, but once I was happy, I started experimenting with patterns. I originally drew an anchor and helm design, but no matter what colour I'd used, it didn't suit well with the white base. Red and black looked great, but this gave off more of a pirate feel, so I ended up shelving the idea for another time. Eventually I realised that simplicity was the answer, setting on round crosses instead. The colour scheme changed over time, but it wasn't until I finished the skirt that I landed on the green and blue palette. The ruffles were inspired by swimsuit designs. You can see this in the way they attach at the back. Typically, you'll see them wrap all the way around, but I was set on keeping the V-cut at the front. The yellow buttons and flower-like petals were added to break up the seam where the ruffle and top connect, and I think that detail pulls it together nicely. These fin straps are part of the top, despite their colour matching the reddy pink bikini underneath. The colour of these elements were made with the intent of adding a hard contrast to the prominence of teal in the overall design. The necklace is inspired by beaded beach accessories with a pendant shaped like a water droplet. The same design is used for her earrings, which are tucked away behind her hair. Designing the skirt was quite a challenge. I explored a lot of summer and nautical patterns, but most felt overly complex. That's what initially drew me toward tribal designs instead, not only for their simplicity, but because they reminded me of Link's blue tunic from the Wind Waker. I made a lot of different patterns, mixing and matching before deciding on the idea of depicting the sea. The colour gradient is meant to show the sunlight filtering through the water, fading into darker tones as it reaches the sunbed, symbolised by the wavy line. Above are the fish, and at the very top are the seabed's waves. The triangle zigzag was intended to be the land at the top, but the composition felt unbalanced, so I flipped it and placed it underneath, making it look like arrows depicting depth. The same pattern can be seen along the belt tie, wrapping around the waist. On the tips, I made use of a wave design I originally made for the skirt that I found was too bold to use there. The bag was a late addition, added primarily to break up the symmetry of the design. The idea actually stemmed from the helm icon I mentioned earlier. I originally considered turning it into an accessory like a necklace or earring, but I wanted it to have more presence. A keyring felt like a good middle ground, which led to the idea of a bag. It also just made sense. If she was out and about at a holiday resort, she needs something to carry that cash, dollar, money, and by herself some worthless tat. To add further asymmetry, I included pearl bracelets, one wrist and ankle, another intentional nod to the sea. The sunglasses were a final touch. Experimented with a variety of colours, but ultimately found that white frames with sunburst lenses worked best. As for shoes, originally she wore simple flip-flops, but after looking into more styles, I came across platform heel sandals that made for a more appealing look. Switching to these meant creating a shape key to lift the foot accordingly. Their leather finish matches the bag, and I made a decorative flower just because it felt right. The flower is a lily, chosen purely because I liked their look. A sunflower might have been more thematic, but the lily stayed. I also tried adding one to her hair tie, though I'm not entirely sold on it yet. I think I need to swap it for a different accessory. I just haven't worked out what yet. Now let's risk the video getting flagged and take a look at the underlayer. You'll notice the skin texture includes pre-painted shadows known as ambient occlusion. If I turn the dress AO off, this is what it looks like. I modelled and textured these aspects in their entirety in the case I decided to make more outfits in the future. When I export the model, most of these areas will be masked and cooled to reduce poly count and prevent clipping. Oh, and I almost forgot, she's got a thigh band, because let's be honest, what kind of anime character would she be without one? The body mesh was made from scratch, but the hands and feet were taken from my tutorial series with minor tweaks here and there. The nails are pink with white tips, which I might recolor to fit the outfit. I haven't decided yet. After finishing the clothes, the quality of the original skin texture just wasn't up to scratch, so I did it again. It still lacks some contouring, especially around the hands and feet, but for the most part it's done. This was my original head design. Yeah, I know. Terrifying.
What the hell is even that?
I actually went through the full process of modelling and texturing before deciding it wasn't up to my standards. After spending a lot of time tweaking and adjusting, I eventually realised it'd be better to scrap it and start fresh. The original had an extremely pointed profile and a short upper head, which gave it an overly round appearance. After studying other models more closely, I used the reference of Jinshi to help guide me in creating my first iteration of a new design. This version was a significant improvement, but there were still a few issues, especially with the eyes, which I kept tweaking over time. I also tried adapting the old hair to fit the new face, but even after extensive adjustments, it wasn't working, so I decided to design a new hairstyle, this time opting for a more proven, reliable look, instead of trying to get fancy with it. Ponytails tend to work well for character models, especially when applying physics, as they add a good sense of motion. It also made practical sense. Tying her hair back helps prevent the sun's heat from getting trapped, and her ears from getting sweaty. With the new design, I also experimented with recoloring the eyes, but the results weren't what I hoped for. After spending a lot of time studying green anime eyes, I noticed that many of them rely on surprisingly simple designs. It wasn't until I came across a particular reference image that I finally found a direction that felt right. I also incorporated a few techniques I picked up from eye painting tutorials. For example, the pupil features a step gradient with a small yellow highlight at its center to naturally draw attention. My idea for the lower part of the eye was to mimic the setting sun with the yellow semicircle, and beneath it, a patch of green bordered with teal, evoking the image of an island surrounded by the sea. Now let's talk about the most challenging part of the model to design and construct, the hair. In my experience, the best approach is to aim for overall conformity with subtle hints of chaos. Most strands should flow in the same general direction to maintain harmony, while the occasional outlier breaks the pattern just enough to add visual interest. Translating the 2D design into 3D required a fair bit of improvisation. One of the most notable changes is this split, which reveals a glimpse of the hair's root. The side strands and the cap were initially modelled using a mirror modifier, but to break the symmetry and add more of a natural feel, I later introduced extra strands and adjusted the nape of the neck. When it comes to texturing, I use 5 primary tones: the base colour, shading, hard lines, highlights, and shine. Highlights are typically placed opposite the shaded area on the strand, but applied selectively to emphasize key details, like this front lock that curls from the top downward. To make the hair pop, I use colour overlays to subtly shift the tone. There is a warm orange tint near the top and a cool blue hue toward the bottom. A lighter shade highlights the nape, while a deep shadow defines the space between the back of the head and the ponytail. I also added a few extra shaded areas, like near the hair bubble, to enhance the sense of depth. I chose the overall colour because I like its tone. It's a slightly lighter shade than Kafka's from Honkai Star Rail, and is a hue not seen very often. It also provides a nice contrast to the common use of lighter colours in the clothing. And that about covers everything, so what do you think? I was honestly surprised by how it turned out. This is the first character I've fully committed to in this art style, and I feel I successfully captured the theme and setting I had in mind. If you want to know more about any part of the process, just leave a comment and I'll do my best to share. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I'll be rigging and animating next. I'm not sure when the next video will drop, but I post weekly updates with screenshots for my Patreon members, link in the description. You can also catch up with my previous updates featuring a dummy thick mannequin who's definitely heading for the chopping block. And as always, if you want to do none of that, would you kindly bugger off?